All right, let's dive into a story that really haunts the African night. A creature born from shadows, suspicion, and a very real animal. We're exploring the incredible legend of the Were Hyena. So picture this. You're out in the vast landscapes of East Africa, from the deserts of Sudan to the highlands of Ethiopia. And everything goes completely quiet. That's when people start listening very, very carefully for one particular sound. A sound that puts everyone on edge. Yeah, that chilling, almost human-like laugh of a hyena. Because, you see, the old stories warn you, some of those creatures prowling out there in the darkness, they're not actually animals at all. They are something else entirely. And they have a name. They are known as the Buddha, a terrifying shapeshifter that, get this, walks among humans by day and hunts as a beast by night. So what exactly is a Buddha? Well, in the traditions of Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa, the Buddha is a real person who can physically transform into a hyena. In some versions of the story, they can even project their spirit into one. And these aren't just shapeshifters. They're grave robbers, they prey on the vulnerable, and they wield this malevolent power known as the evil eye. And their powers, oh, they're absolutely formidable. They're said to transform right at dusk, sometimes using these magical ointments or even a special girdle made from hyena hide. And that evil eye, just their gaze alone is said to cause this horrible wasting sickness in people and their livestock. They don't just hunt living things, they actually plunder graves for corpses and can call up entire packs of hyenas with just a simple whistle. And then there's this really strange part. They're linked to a kind of occult metallurgy, using iron charms to bypass locks and get into people's homes. You know, this fear is nothing new. It goes way, way back. The ancient Greek writer Ctesias wrote about this creature in Ethiopia called the crocata. And listen to this description. It could imitate a human voice, call men by their names at night, and then devour them. Sound familiar? It's remarkably similar to the Buddha, which just shows you how deep the roots of this monster really go. So, the big question is, where does a terrifying legend like this even come from? Well, to really get the monster, you have to first understand the real-world animal that casts such a long and dark shadow. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because you can see how the myth is totally grounded in reality. The legend talks about a magical transformation, right? Well, in real life, spotted hyenas have anatomy that makes their gender incredibly difficult to distinguish, and that historically led to folklore about them changing sex. The myth says they hunt souls. The reality is that hyenas are known scavengers that will, and do, dig up human graves for food. And that terrifying voice, their vocalizations can sound so much like human laughter or crying, it's just unnerving. The seeds of the monster were right there in the real animal all along. And look, this connection isn't something from the distant past or just out in the remote wilderness. In modern Ethiopia, hyenas live incredibly close to people. I mean, check out this number. In some urban dumps, a staggering 83% of the waste is organic. That's a perfect food source, and it draws huge hyena populations right up to the edges of cities, blurring the line between the human world and the wild, and keeping these legends feeling very, very alive. Okay, but the legend of the Buddha isn't just about an animal. It's about who people accused of becoming that animal. And when you look at that, it uncovers a really dark history of social prejudice. Yeah, these accusations of being a Buddha, they were rarely random. They were consistently aimed at specific, often marginalized groups, people without land, workers who moved from town to town, and especially skilled artisans like blacksmiths, potters, and weavers. These were the outsiders, the people whose crafts were seen as mysterious. Just think about it from the perspective of an outsider back then. Take the blacksmiths. Their work must have seemed like actual magic. They take this useless rock out of the earth, subject it to the intense, transformative power of the forge's fire, and create something entirely new, a sharp, useful tool. That power of transformation itself was seen as unnatural, even supernatural, and that's what bred suspicion. And all that suspicion simmering around these artisans, it eventually focused, with chilling precision, on one specific community. This is where folklore turns into a tool of oppression. That suspicion ended up being aimed squarely at the Beta Israel, or Ethiopian Jews. And if you look at this timeline, you can see how their fortunes just completely shifted. Back in the 15th century, their skills as soldiers and builders were highly valued. But after major political upheaval in 1769, they were pushed into marginalized trades, like smithing, becoming the exact landless artisans the folklore already targeted. The derogatory term, falasha, or exile, became linked to them, and with it, the curse of the Buddha. From there, the prejudice escalated into the horrifying accusation of blood libel. The story twisted. It became that the Beta Israel didn't just rob graves, they transformed into hyenas, specifically to drain the blood of Christians, a baseless and terrible claim used to demonize and control the entire community. You know, when a fear is that profound, it doesn't just go away. It embeds itself deep inside a culture. It creates this lasting legacy of terror, and, of course, a desperate need for protection. So naturally, people developed all sorts of ways to protect themselves. They would commission special healing scrolls from religious scholars filled with sacred verses and images meant to repel demons. They'd wear these scrolls, burn incense, scatter salt, and even stand guard over new graves to protect them. You have to understand, these weren't just simple superstitions. They were practical responses to a fear that felt incredibly real. And the legend's curse lingers. Even today, to call someone a Buddha in Ethiopia is a deeply offensive and alienating insult, a modern echo of a very ancient fear. Which really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Our monster stories are powerful. They reflect our fears of the natural world, that laugh in the dark, the disturbed grave, but they also reflect our fears of each other. So when we tell stories about monsters, who are we really describing?